Then I went back and reviewed some of the limitations of the litigation privilege, and I realized Lively may have made a big mistake.
Hold up. Did Blake Lively just seriously Wait a second. Did Blake Lively just make a massive blunder? Word on the street is they messed up big time, and now everyone's talking. And guess who's weighing in on the drama? Justin Baldoni, of all people. Yeah, you heard that right. When even Justin Baldoni can't stay quiet about it, you know things have gone completely off the rails. So, what exactly did Blake do to suddenly become the villain in this story overnight? Could this be the start of a serious downfall for Blake and Ryan's public image? Grab your popcorn because their carefully crafted world is starting to crack. And trust me, Justin Baldoni's jaw-dropping reaction to this scandal is making everything even wilder. You won't believe how fast their picture-perfect reputation is unraveling. And we've got all the details coming right up. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have landed themselves in a massive mess of their own making. They tried to come across as powerful and influential, but instead, they ended up looking sneaky and reckless. And this scandal is so big, it feels like it just won't end. At first, they acted like everything was under control. But then, the truth came crashing down like a storm, completely knocking them off balance. People quickly realized this wasn't just a minor dispute. It was a full-blown legal circus designed to mislead the public and shift the blame onto someone else for problems that might have been their own fault. It all started with shocking claims that Blake Lively was using fake witnesses and shady legal tactics to paint herself as a victim in court, hoping to gain sympathy from the judge. But that plan, it backfired spectacularly. The judge saw right through it, realizing she was twisting the facts. And let's be real. Juries despise liars and people who fabricate stories. Trials are all about truth, and no one appreciates someone trying to manipulate the system. The moment everyone caught on to what she was doing, Blake's reputation started crumbling at lightning speed. She wanted special treatment, acting as if the normal rules didn't apply to her. It was almost like she believed she was above the law, more important than the opposing side in the lawsuit. But the judge was having none of it. Instead of buying into her act, they called her out, making it clear that her behavior was more about deception than proving anything real. And if that wasn't enough, Blake even tried using tears in court to make herself look like a helpless victim. But let's be honest. Was anyone real?
High-profile celebrities outside of Blake and Ryan Reynolds that will be dragged into this, and there may be some discovery that gets dragged up that is linked to them.
She wanted a bunch of special rules for herself. She must have believed that tears and fancy words would be enough to win the case. She thought she could walk into that courtroom, throw around some legal terms, shed a few tears, and the judge would immediately take her side. But her emotional performance, it was just another act, and people saw right through it. Now, her career is taking a massive nosedive. If she ever thought she was untouchable, she just got a brutal wake-up call. Judge Lyman finally had enough. He saw through all the theatrics and called Blake's lawsuit nothing more than a flashy media stunt. It was never about real justice. It was a calculated move to control public perception. But ironically, the only ones who fell for their own scheme were Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds themselves. The harder they tried to twist the narrative in their favor, the more obvious it became that they had zero real evidence to back it up. The judge also made it clear that Blake's testimony carried significant weight. But if the jury caught even a single lie in her story, they wouldn't trust anything she said. Juries don't take kindly to people who manipulate the truth. What was supposed to be a serious legal battle turned into a complete disaster, revealing itself as a staged performance rather than a real case. And right in the middle of this chaotic mess, Blake Lively. After hearing all the arguments, the judge found that Fredman had the stronger case. She was the one who initially took action, and she was also the one facing the consequences. Every time Blake tried to spin the story in her favor, things backfired spectacularly. And then, the real bombshell dropped. People uncovered a secret. Audio recording of Ari Emanuel, a powerful Hollywood agent. This recording exposed something huge. Hollywood's hidden power plays, where big names can blacklist others for personal gain. The shocking part? Emanuel admitted that Justin Baldoni was blacklisted not because he did anything wrong, but simply because he was friends with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Apparently, they treated Hollywood like their own private kingdom, pulling strings behind the scenes to control who stayed in and who was pushed out. This revelation changed everything. The scandal took an even darker turn when it came out that Baldoni's agency, WME, had dropped him right after Blake publicly made her allegations. There was no solid evidence against him. It just looked like Blake and Ryan used their influence to wreck his career, but the newly leaked audio proved just how far they were willing to go. It showed they had immense power behind the scenes and weren't afraid to use it in incredibly unfair ways. When the judge heard this, it became crystal clear. Blake's side had been lying and manipulating the system from the very beginning. What started as a lawsuit quickly turned into something else entirely. People weren't calling it a legal case anymore. They were calling it one big lie.
Ruled and does agree that high-profile third parties that are not involved directly in the lawsuit, they are entitled to some privacy. Therefore, any of their information may likely be deemed attorney's eyes only.
If she thought she was the judge, the lawyers, and probably even the public could all see that Blake Lively's words simply weren't adding up. Even her own PR team must have realized they were on a sinking ship, and the smartest move would be to abandon her before it was too late. But just when things couldn't get any more chaotic, they did. A Freakonomics podcast episode featuring the Emmanuel audio clip mysteriously disappeared without warning. Suddenly, no one could find it, and that raised serious questions. How much power do these Hollywood elites really have if they can make an entire podcast episode vanish? They may have been able to erase the episode, but they couldn't erase the truth. The audio was already out there, and the damage was irreversible. This wasn't just about rumors anymore. Justin Baldoni now had a clear path to take legal action for defamation. And with this new court order, Blake Lively was officially in trouble. She wasn't just dealing with gossip now. She was facing a real legal battle that could completely destroy her reputation. People were beginning to see that she had been manipulating the story from the very start. Meanwhile, Blake continued to act like she was a master performer, but her real performance was happening inside the courtroom. She twisted facts, changed details, and reshaped her story whenever it suited her. If there were an award for the best fake lawsuit, she'd probably be fighting to win it. Every time she spoke, her version of events seemed to shift. She started with one claim, then suddenly changed it, then kept adding more drama to make it sound even worse. She even filed a nearly 180-page complaint, an absurdly long document for a case like this. That's like turning a short story into a full-length novel. It was almost as if she thought that by throwing enough words together, people wouldn't notice how weak her case actually was. And then came another shocking moment. Blake's legal team argued that they shouldn't have to release certain text messages in discovery, especially ones involving high-profile clients like Taylor Swift and others. But that only made people more suspicious. Legal experts examined all 180 pages of her complaint and realized that most of it wasn't even about real legal claims. It read more like a press release designed to control public perception rather than win a case. And let's be honest, if you need that many pages to prove something happened, it probably means nothing significant ever did. But Blake's biggest mistake was yet to come. She claimed to have video evidence that would prove Baldoni had done something awful. She hyped it up, telling everyone that the footage would be shocking, that it would completely ruin his reputation forever. But when the full video was finally released, it told a completely different story. Instead of looking distressed or in danger, Blake was seen smiling, acting completely fine, and looking comfortable in the scene. The very thing she had tried to use as proof ended up proving her wrong.
And Taylor Swift are texting about at any given time in the last 3 or 4 years. If we were to get our mitts on those messages, we would have to go to 5 days a week. We would have to go to 7. It would take till the end of time to unpack the messages between Taylor and Blake in 2024.
The judge heard the arguments. I felt Friedman made the better case.
She was the one who... It was the complete opposite of what she had told everyone. That was a massive red flag for both the judge and the jury. If Blake could lie about something so simple, what else could she be lying about? Then, in a desperate attempt to shift the narrative, she made up yet another excuse. She claimed Baldoni wasn't in character during the scene, and that she was forced to pretend she liked him. But let's be real. Blake is literally an actress. Pretending to like someone is a fundamental part of her job. At this point, her excuses were getting more ridiculous by the minute. It was clear that she was just dodging responsibility and shifting blame. Legally, this was a huge problem for her. If a single lie is uncovered in her testimony, the jury has every right to disregard her entire statement. And Blake, she had. already been caught lying multiple times. She might have thought she could rewrite history and manipulate public opinion, but all she did was destroy her own credibility. By the time the actual trial rolls around, it's going to be a disaster for her. Court documents are meant to be public under the Freedom of Information Act, meaning people will have access to everything. And when that happens, it's going to be even harder for her to hide. If the jury doesn't believe her, she stands no chance of winning. But despite all of this, Blake still refused to learn from her mistakes. Every time she got caught, she came up with a new story to cover up the last one, digging herself deeper into a hole. Watching her was like watching someone realize they're stuck in quicksand, only to start thrashing around and sinking even faster. Everyone else could see the disaster unfolding, except for her. Even Hollywood insiders, who usually stand by celebrities no matter what, started distancing themselves. At first, some of them tried to ignore the situation, but as the lawsuit spiraled out of control, it became too embarrassing to defend. Blake had even demanded 2.5 years' worth of phone records and private documents from others involved in the case. Yet she wanted special protection for her own sources. It was a clear case of double standards, and it made her look even worse. This whole fiasco was avoidable, but instead of backing down, Blake kept pushing forward. And now, she's trapped with no way out. She tried to handle this lawsuit with her usual star power, but the law doesn't care about fame, it cares about facts. And her facts just didn't hold up. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds must be absolutely regretting how this is playing out. He spent years building a career as Hollywood's lovable, funny guy, but now he's tied to a humiliating lawsuit that has become a complete joke in the media.
We'll have to see what happens if this goes to court, and we don't know that yet. Most people, most lawyers that I've spoken to think that they will settle out of court. I think only 3% of all cases goes to court.
So, was there any real proof that he harassed her, or was it all just smoke and mirrors? Blake and her team thought they could rely on connections and influence to keep the truth hidden, but that plan completely backfired. People saw right through it and quickly realized there was no solid evidence backing her claims. At one point, Blake even considered throwing money at the problem, a classic celebrity move. Many famous people think they can buy their way out of trouble, but that doesn't work in court, especially when the judge is paying close attention. Judges don't take kindly to attempts at manipulating the legal process. Blake became so desperate that she requested something called an attorney's eyes-only protection order. Essentially, she wanted certain pieces of evidence to remain hidden, not just from the public, but even from the judge and the defendant. Now, why would anyone want to bury crucial evidence like that? It seemed like she was terrified that something damaging would come to light. Then, rumors surfaced that someone had attempted to offer a jaw-dropping $100 million bribe to keep things quiet. That's not just a payoff. That's the kind of money you throw around when you're trying to cover up something massive. If Blake had secrets that dangerous, it only proved how far she was willing to go to keep them in the dark. Even though the issue wasn't about her personal security, she still tried to shift the conversation, bringing up unrelated concerns like leaked addresses. But Judge Lyman wasn't having it. He saw through the entire charade and shut it down immediately. He reminded her legal team that courts exist to serve justice, not to protect the reputation of celebrities who think they can buy their way out of accountability. He made it crystal clear, lying to a jury carries serious consequences. But even after that, Blake refused to back down. She switched tactics again, claiming that because she's famous, releasing certain evidence would cause her harm. It was obvious that she wasn't worried about fairness or truth. She was only concerned about how it would impact her career. And sure enough, as soon as she reappeared on the red carpet at South by Southwest, media outlets suddenly started flooding the internet with positive stories about her. It was like someone flipped a switch, and suddenly all the negative press was being drowned out by PR fluff pieces. But the public wasn't fooled. They saw right through the calculated attempt to shift the narrative. Meanwhile, she kept changing her story about a supposedly disturbing dance scene. First, she claimed it was traumatizing. But when the footage surfaced, she was smiling, playful, and completely at ease. Then she tried to spin it another way, saying she was forced to act like she was okay. But let's be real. That's literally her job. She's an actress. Pretending to be happy when you're not is what actors do for a living. None of it made sense, and legal experts picked apart her contradictions immediately. Then, things took an even wilder turn. There were whispers that she had used fake witnesses to support her claims against Baldoni. 2 actresses supposedly had similar stories, but there was a huge problem. These so-called witnesses had no names, no official documents, and no legitimate proof. It was like they didn't even exist. Even the media, which usually jumps at the chance to cover scandals, didn't want to touch this story because it had zero credibility. It was as if Blake was just throwing out accusations, hoping something, anything, would stick. Some insiders in Hollywood said the situation was so obviously fake that they refused to report on it. And at that point, it became clear. Justice wasn't on Blake's side.